Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to Swan Signal Live. It is actually Friday this time. Last week, I accidentally said Friday. And even though it was Thursday and we had a 4th of July, I hope you guys had a good 4th of July weekend and happy all-time high. Welcome. We got John Har with us as usual, Managing Director at Swan Private, Jason, who's a account executive at Swan Private, and Q, also an account executive at Swan Private. Welcome to the squad, man. You're a relatively recent addition. How are things going?
I'm loving it. It's fun. I feel like I'm joining like the superstar team. Everyone's great. I was gushing about it to Corey and Jeremy the other day. I'm like, dude, I love this team. These guys are great. Jason, John are just awesome teammates. And then shout out to everyone else: Alex, Alec, Matt, Isaiah. It's an awesome team, and I'm truly grateful to be a part of it.
We're stoked to have you, man.
Taking your talents to Swan Private. We love it.
Exactly. Dream team.
So we're at 117,590. I guess we touched 118, 119 maybe overnight. Jason, you were up with red eyes watching the price last night.
Yeah, I was on that 1 minute chart all throughout the night, still watching it. I'll keep you posted in real time here.
Yeah, so we're up in all-time high territory again. Price discovery mode engaged. Where do you guys think price will be? Where will it top out before the next, let's say, 10% drop, 10% pullback? How far are we going to go?
Who wants it first?
I'm going to hold you guys to it.
I'll do it. No, I'll do it. I'll do it because I'll start. I'll start and either end up with egg on my face or be able to make this prediction first. I think we're literally seeing the pullback right now. I think we're rejecting 120. We tried to get up to 119 as Jason brought up. I think we're going to pull back. I don't think we're going to go like sub 100. I don't even think we're going to go sub 110. But I think this is the exciting part. When we used to joke when Bitcoin's price was at like 50K, and then it shoots down 10%, and 50K down 10 was 45K. Well, going down 10% from 120 is all the way down to 108. You're going to lose 12K of value per Bitcoin now. So you'll see these types of price movements. I think a healthy pullback right here is more than reasonable, and it's nothing to be alarmed by.
Okay, so 119 was the top before a 10% pullback. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. Very conservative. This is a hodler's mentality, long term. Don't worry about the short term. No stress. What do you think, Jason?
I want to say between 125 and 140. I think 125 is one of those psychological levels. And maybe even 120. 120 is one of those as well. Yeah, we kind of have this little consolidation happening around 117 and kind of getting rejected at the 119 level. But I don't know about a 10% pullback yet. I think we go a little higher first.
Yep. John, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I wouldn't put a high degree of confidence on whatever I'm about to say, but I'll answer it anyway. Before I answer, I'll give the caveat. Like I would go back to January when Trump was getting inaugurated and we were like at 105 or something like that. If you would have asked most people in Bitcoin, what are the odds that we dip to 80K or below 80K? Most people are saying like less than 1% chance or even 0% chance. And it happened. And then if you ask them the question in April, when we were at 75K, if you said to them, what are the chances we'll be back at 100K 30 days from now? Maybe it would have been, a little higher than 1% chance, but still they would have said very low chance of that. And it happened.
Yep.
So when you're ripping higher, it kind of feels like, nothing could take the price down sometimes, but I don't know. I will say, I kind of feel like inflation's generally in check. The tariff stuff could come back, but I think we saw peak tariff uncertainty, like by far. I don't think we get back to the April levels of that. So barring some sort of like shock that sends the S&P 500 down 20%, because I think that would hurt Bitcoin a lot. Barring something like that, but you did say 10% drawdown, which easily could happen. I'm giving a million caveats here.
Maybe I should have said 20%.
Playing it very safe.
Yeah. So Q put out the math there. Going from 120 down to 108 is a 10% drop. I think we will get into the 120s before another 1%, 10% drop. I'll keep it vague like that. Brady, what's yours?
Brady,
I'm gonna say 131. We'll plow through 130 once and get rejected, 10% pullback below 120, and then off to the next leg up. But yeah, there are a bunch of caveats here, but I think in general, with the current state of affairs, Bitcoin has some room to run here, and who knows? Bulls can start piling in, bandwagon bulls can start piling in too. And once you get clear of 120, that's really exciting price discovery territory. So you could see some animal spirits creeping in.
I love the way you're framing that too, Brady, because it's like we are like any sort of news could flip this script so quickly, and like all of this becomes irrelevant. And because I've had so many clients on calls just this week alone be like, where do you think things are going? I love this caveat of, look, if any of us knew, we're not on this call, we're sitting in Vegas at a craps table or at the roulette table, like picking numbers like that. I could definitely see a world though where we see these pullbacks more so because you have IBIT made a big gap up, MicroStrategy and Marathon both are reaching like sort of resistance levels. And I think these are things that are like the general market is starting to play an effect into how Bitcoin's price movement is happening, more so than in previous cycles where you didn't have the ETF, you didn't have as many publicly traded Bitcoin companies. I think we're going to start to feel those effects more on this cycle and future cycles than we're, as long-term Bitcoin holders, have been used to.
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is not trading advice. This is just locker room talk amongst Bitcoin maximalists who just like to watch the scoreboard and see what happens. We're not trading this stuff. We're just accumulating.
No,
we're just accumulating. Yeah. Just accumulate and hodl.
I think
yeah, good.
Sorry, Brady. I was just going to add to that. One thing that makes me feel really bullish is seeing that we've consolidated above 100K for 64 consecutive days. Like, to me, that's almost more exciting than the 118K level because it just shows such strong support and footprint at that level, right? It's kind of easy now to view that as a floor. But to John's point, short-term movements are very much at the whim of politics. I think we can expect that to continue in either direction. So it's best, I guess, to not get too emotional in either direction. But seeing like those long-term consolidations, I think, is what has me feeling really good.
Just to add one thing to that, the number of days in 2021 that the price closed above 60K was 40 days. So, that was kind of like the previous high range. Oh my gosh, Bitcoin's in the 60K. That was only 40 days that it closed. So now it has spent substantially more time above 100K.
Yep. That makes sense. Yeah. So again, let's just reiterate here. Trading is, you're going to get wrecked. Almost everyone is going to get wrecked. If you're not a professional trader who's like paying attention to this stuff as part of their full-time job, if you're doing this as a hobby in your basement, you will over time get wrecked. So 99% of people probably shouldn't be trading, whether that's Bitcoin treasury companies or Bitcoin itself or anything Bitcoin related to get exposure to. It's like, if you want to invest in one of those things and hold it for the long term, that's really the key, right? And when it comes to the Bitcoin treasury companies, which it's a hot item, a hot trend in the space, and we can talk about how Swan's gotten involved this week as well. But these are not really, they're not made for retail investment, right? These are like in institutional grade investments, and the only way that these treasury companies will really provide like a strong benefit, I think, for Bitcoin is if they bring in the billions of dollars that's sitting out there waiting, like looking for a place to get exposure to Bitcoin or to get better, terms on their debt deals and things like that. That's what these treasury companies are looking for. Of course, there's people who are going to trade it, and try to kind of front run institutional purchases or whatever. But that's not it's not my recommendation. Anyway, that said, we do have some developments this week in the Bitcoin treasury space. Sequans, a company out of Paris, France, that makes Internet of Things semiconductors, has decided to build a Bitcoin treasury for their business, and Swan has been advising and working with them on this process, procuring the money and figuring out where to custody it and secure it and all of that stuff. So it's been a really interesting process to see kind of from the inside. And it's, the market's responded really well to this kind of change in strategy from Sequans this week. The stock's up. So it looks like, there's more excitement about, or evidence of the excitement about Bitcoin treasury companies and that speculative attack that they're enabling.
You guys, I got to step off. I got to close the window. You guys are hearing too much New York City noises here.
Oh, I thought that was Brady for a second.
That's me. That's me. Hold on.
They're
Hold
coming
on.
for you, John. They're coming for you.
It's realistic for you and all the listeners. Feel like you're in the heart of New York.
See, look, New York City does not like Bitcoin. They do not like Bitcoin. They overheard this conversation.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's the feds.
All right, we're back with some peace and quiet.
Yeah. All right. So, what's your take on the Bitcoin treasury company front this week, and just in general, John? I know we've been talking about it a lot, but if you've had any kind of thoughts, ideas over the past week about this trend, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. Before that, I'll just continue kind of your PSA on getting involved in these. I'll also reiterate something Corey said on the Supply Shock podcast this week. It's like, generally speaking, Swan's recommendation to clients is going to be roughly 80% of your Bitcoin exposure in spot Bitcoin, cold storage, the right custody setup for you. There are different options there with custody, of course. So that's what we'd recommend. If you want that other 20% to be like the broader Bitcoin ecosystem, whether that's even like Bitcoin venture, Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin treasury, then it's like, okay, fine. But the two things you need to be aware of, if you're going to do the more like true investing or trading strategies, you need to be okay with potentially getting the timing wrong. And you need to be much more active of an investor. You need to follow what these companies are doing, what the management teams are saying. So the example I love to give is that Microsoft as a company, if you look back like the last 25 years, depending exactly the time period you choose, that stock is up 20 to 25% per year over that time period. Of course, not every single year did it go up 20 to 25%. It had some big up years, big down years. You have to ask yourself, same question with Bitcoin. Are you confident that you're going to pick with Bitcoin either the right time to buy or sell, or you're going to pick the right Bitcoin treasury company, get in at the right time, out at the right time? Or do you just want to hold this asset that I would compare it to Microsoft? It's going to be like, if you return 20% per year over 2 decades, you're like the best performing hedge fund in the world. So you don't really want to mess that up.
Yeah.
That's the PSA. So on the Bitcoin treasury stuff, that is kind of related there. I think obviously we're seeing a lot of copycats. I had the take last Thursday live while we were doing the show. I think there's something to be said about, we want there to be hundreds, if not thousands of companies that own Bitcoin, because the alternative is not no companies are going to do this. The alternative would be like, MicroStrategy owns
Just strategy.
Yeah, it's like everyone should prefer that there's hundreds or thousands of corporate entities that do this. And I think you're going to see that. There's obviously going to be differentiation in terms of how they actually execute on the Bitcoin side of things. Brady, you mentioned Sequans is working with Swan for that Bitcoin ecosystem expertise, among other things.
Right.
So that's number one. You need to have corporate finance knowledge. You're issuing securities, you're issuing debt, you're issuing equity. You need to know when to do this at the optimal times. That's not a super easy exercise. You need people well-versed in all of that. You also need to be able to communicate with the investment community and convince them that you're in this for the right reasons. We've seen other companies, I'll just name them, like GameStop and the Trump media stock. They've announced a Bitcoin treasury strategy, and it hasn't been, oh my gosh, the stock pops, everyone loves it. Yep. So it's not as simple as just saying we're going to borrow money and issue equity to buy Bitcoin. You really need to capitalize on these 3 or 4 different core points. And I think the market is going to reward the companies that do well on that. And they're going to, kind of step aside from the companies that are not as convincing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's execution excellence, you could say. Like, how are they executing on bringing the money in, on what terms? How are they executing on being able to secure and custody the funds, and just being very responsible about thinking through the strategy, about communicating it, about building connections with the institutions and all of that stuff. There's a lot of, it's not just these are all the same thing because they have a Bitcoin treasury. There's a lot that goes into it to differentiate them. Another thing could be the underlying business. I think if there's like an underlying Bitcoin business, there could be a synergy there that between like institutional investors and accredited investors investing in these things, and then having all of the clients of the Bitcoin business kind of like also being clients for this and vice versa. So that's another thing I could see that would like separate certain companies from one another. But there's going to be sort of a set of blue chip Bitcoin treasury companies that emerges over time, kind of like the Mag 7, right? And then of course there already is the big board, the Bitcoin 100. It could be an index. You could buy an index of all these treasury companies, and it's ranked by how much Bitcoin do you have in your treasury. And that already exists. So yeah, we'll see the stratification over time. These companies are going to transform into Bitcoin financial services, wealth management, banks, etc., over the next couple of decades. But these companies getting in now are going to have a huge advantage in that new industry, the Bitcoin-based financial services industry. Yeah.
I also just kind of want to flag this or like bring this up because I had the chance a couple of weeks ago. We had a Swan private event, and Ben Workman came and spoke at the event. And he's been doing this publicly too, but the interesting thing he pointed out is a lot of these companies, let's be really honest here. None of us were using MicroStrategy's BI software prior to them buying Bitcoin, or even still now. Most of these treasury plays are frankly just zombie companies that are trying to, stay relevant by not going completely obsolete, even though their actual business model is slowly dwindling or they're losing market share to larger competitors. It'll be really interesting actually to see what happens when a growth company or a company on the upswing also adopts this Bitcoin treasury strategy, to see like how much of an impact that drives their share value higher, not only because the company itself is growing naturally, but then also because they're starting to stack with Bitcoin.
Yep.
That's
just one kind of bottom line thing, because this is such a hotly debated thing, on Twitter right now, all the paper Bitcoin summer memes and everything, which are very entertaining. The way I summarize this is the purpose of these companies, the real purpose of these companies is that you've got like 140 some odd trillion in fixed income markets that cannot buy spot Bitcoin, no matter how badly they want to. And the ability of these treasury companies or leveraged Bitcoin equities, whatever term you prefer, to go after that market in an efficient way and issue the right products to target that market, those are going to be the winners. That's going to separate the winning from the losing cohort here. But that's the purpose, is to funnel that capital from that market into Bitcoin when it otherwise wouldn't happen, right? It's not supposed to be geared towards like retail investors, like, hey, buy this shiny new object instead of your spot Bitcoin, right? So that's kind of the thing I always return to when it comes to this debate and people kind of like pushing back on the paper Bitcoin thing, is just remembering that, keeping that top of mind.
Yep.
This was, I think, this also came from Corey, although I read so many things on Twitter, I forget. But the line was speculative attack at scale. And then there was another funny tweet in the past few weeks. It might have been from Steven that said, if you thought the speculative attack was individuals borrowing over collateralized with their Bitcoin to acquire another 20 grand worth of Bitcoin, you're in for a surprise.
Yeah.
It's like the speculative attack is going to be through the corporate channels, just because they can tap the fiat system so much better than an individual. Like I said last week, if you don't like that, the response is don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yep. 1000%.
Brady, can we before we go into more news topics of stuff that dropped, can we just do like a little anecdotal for all four of us?
Yeah.
Now that we're at all-time highs, like well into all-time highs yesterday and today, what in terms of text you're getting, friends, family, former coworkers, or is it all quiet? How would you guys describe it for you?
It is very quiet for me. I'm hearing nothing from my normies out there. Uh, I think I was talking with someone earlier today, and I said this is the quietest all-time high we've ever seen. So,
Mhm.
and I felt that way at 112K a few weeks ago as well, or maybe a couple months ago, whatever that was, May. Yeah, it's pretty clear that this is not a retail-driven thing right now, and I think that's very interesting. It makes me feel super bullish.
We were talking about this chart
Yeah.
before we started the call. It's not labeled here, but this is Google Trends charts going back to 2010. You can see the first blip was around 2010, where it actually registered on Google Trends. Massive spike up to the all-time high mentions of Bitcoin or searches for Bitcoin in 2017 during that mania. And you can see here we're just kind of grinding along, sort of at the low point, actually, this kind of recent low.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
I mean, we're at the same levels that we were in, winter and spring of 2023, which things were not very interesting to the masses at that time. That was kind of like the slog coming out of the 2022 crash, right? Very much still like a bear market kind of environment. So
Yeah.
that's the level of interest we have
Yeah. I
according
have
to that chart.
zero incoming this week
Yeah.
for me from friends and family.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of incoming from people who know that I've been into Bitcoin for a while, people who know that I work for a Bitcoin company. A lot of them are like, just a short text of like, wow, Bitcoin, something simple like that. The more substantial thing to share is in the last couple months, I've had the chance to run this by 4 former colleagues. So people who still work at Goldman today, and they manage money for institutions. They have a Bloomberg terminal. They follow the markets as much as anybody. And I asked them, I was like, how familiar are you guys with MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor? And it's just 4 people, so keep that in mind. But again, they sit in a seat where I think the answer is interesting. Their responses ranged from like, yeah, I've heard of him. That was like the most affirmative response. It was like, yeah, I've heard of them. And then the other ones were just like, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. So, and I'm not saying that's what it would be all across TradFi, right? Because like there are banks that are helping MicroStrategy raise, like they're clearly aware of the strategy being pulled off there. But for people whose day job has nothing to do with Bitcoin, has nothing to do with these Bitcoin treasury companies, it's really like not on their radar.
Yep. Yeah. And part of it is to me that it's just kind of grinding out these all-time highs. And so it's not like there's this massive run up, like Bitcoin's up 50% to all-time highs in the past month or something like that, right? So it's just kind of grinding high. Like I think it would make the mainstream media, business media, if there was like this massive run up to an all-time high and it just like crushes through an all-time high. But with this just kind of like stair stepping, it's just not as exciting to report on, or talk about. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we saw that at the end of last year, right? Following election day, we had never, I think it was on election night that we crossed that 73K mark for the first time. And from then to January, it pretty much ran straight up, right? With brief pauses. And during that time, I was getting a lot of inbound from people. I was getting a lot of people showing interest as it very quickly hit 80, 90, 95, of course, 100 in early December. But this feels like so much more substantial and concrete, like you said, Brady. We've really consolidated and kind of just like slowly grinded our way here. And I think that's a good thing. I think we've been over the 100K mark for something like 64, 65 consecutive days now, which is huge. Like, that's the thing that gets me more excited than a very sharp green candle upward, although both get me excited, for different reasons. So
I'll also just kind of echo and piggyback off of both of the main talking points here of like almost no new people are reaching out this week, like no friends or family. A lot of it actually was happening during the 4th. I had a lot of like cracks of like, when are you buying your Ferrari kind of a thing, like, but no one has since reached back out. But then John, I had a very interesting conversation with a couple partners at a Merrill branch that I've known one of the partners for years. They manage like a 10-figure book. And one of them is like, we've been talking about Bitcoin for like 6 years. He's an old buddy of mine. The other one is like the elder statesman. The questions the elder statesman was asking me, it's still like they're stuck in like the pre-2020 questions of like, right, but I thought criminals use it. Is it bad for the environment? All this stuff. I'm like, oh, you guys still haven't, you're so far behind on the new cycle. And we still got a lot of educating, I think, to do to tradfy about what this asset really is. There are some who are ahead of the curve, just like, there are always tech entrepreneurs who are ahead of the curve, who are seeing what the next thing is, just like people who are investors. They're picking up the next thing, but the general consensus, that middle of the bell curve, is still behind on what this train actually is.
definitely.
I can't get this to pull up, but I wrote this thread in 2020. I know you guys know about it, but just a couple of tweets. I called it HODL FOMO, which is just like people realizing that hodling Bitcoin is like the appropriate thing to do with the asset. It's a store of value. And then FOMO is like, oh crap, I now realize that this is the case and I need to hodl. So being, fear of missing out on that. So I talk about this, the 2017 speculators chasing, fiat gains, but this is not going to be the case. People are going to be accumulating. I'm talking about companies in particular, be accumulating Bitcoin because they need to hodl it. They've realized this is the case. So there will be no such mass flee in this cycle of HODL FOMO. The speculation has moved from short-term fiat gains to the prevention of long-term gains, long-term fiat loss, a fundamentally different kind of speculation that requires holding the asset for the long term. HODL FOMO will not lead to the bursting of a short-term speculative bubble. Instead, it will steadily build a rising foundation for the Bitcoin price, block by massive block, as the phenomenon proceeds to add new long-term Bitcoin holders to the network. And yeah, that's basically what we're seeing now, is the corporate sort of HODL FOMO. Like, I think Saylor, demonstrated that this is the case and created all the FOMO. And now we're seeing these institutions buy thousands of Bitcoin at a time, and they're holding them. They're not going to be selling them. They're not speculating on them. They're not looking at it like cash. They're holding it as a reserve asset. And that will, and I think, create that kind of grind up. We won't see these massive 80% bear markets again, in my opinion, 80+%. A 30 or 40% decline, I think, would be a big bear market in this new world.
I agree.
I hope you're right.
We'll see.
I'll give my TLDR take on that, which I've shared before, but I think we will see big drops. I'll describe big as like bigger than 50% decline in Bitcoin's price. I think that will happen because you don't go from a $2 trillion asset to a 5 to a 10 to a 20 and beyond in a straight line. We're talking human nature. We're talking markets, price discovery. That's a messy process. What I think is different going forward is the declines in the past have been accompanied by narratives of Bitcoin's dead, extended bear market for, a year plus. I think that's what won't happen because of the ETFs, BlackRock supporting Bitcoin, Fidelity supporting Bitcoin, presidential administration generally supportive of Bitcoin, publicly traded companies owning Bitcoin, billionaires going on CNBC owning Bitcoin. I don't think you're going to have that November 2022 moment where people are like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's dead. So I separate out those two things. Are we just talking a price decline, or are we talking price decline plus extended bear market?
Yeah,
I do like, really quickly, Brady, if I may.
of course.
I like exactly what you're saying, John. Like, the people who are in the Bitcoin market today, they are not losers in every sense of the word. They don't make these type of outsized bets on some sort of an asset with an expectation of like it's going to lose value by 50+%. That said, I do think, now look, I think this is more like my own personal bias for multiple reasons, but 2022, a big part of that final drop down was FTX's collapse and a loss in trust in just Bitcoin, despite the fact it being a crypto issue. You could see something of that scale happening. Again, this is just my own personal bias and feelings towards a company like this, but like, say a company like Coinbase absolutely does something not related to Bitcoin, but gets caught up in some other crypto scam. It topples trust, and all of a sudden, some of these institutions lose their faith in Bitcoin. Keeping in mind that Coinbase is the custodian for what, 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 9 of the Bitcoin ETFs too. You could see the market turbulence causing that drop down. I think something like that, or some actual big news, is going to be the reason why we drop lower. But agnostic of that, if we don't have some sort of exterior event happening, I have a hard time seeing it really drop below 50% this cycle.
I agree. Let's take a look at this one real quick. We were talking about treasury strategy, so I'm going to pull this one up. Strategy is now number 5 in the corporate treasury value. Berkshire Hathaway is up at 350 billion, doing what they do. But strategy just passed Meta and is within striking distance of Amazon, which is the second largest corporate Bitcoin treasury, corporate treasury. If obviously Bitcoin continues to do its thing, and that'll help strategy with. I wonder what it would be interesting to see what the Bitcoin price would need to be for it to pass Amazon at their current Bitcoin levels, but we can look at that later. Okay, so to the other side of the equation, Germany.
Thoughts and prayers to Germany.
There's actually a site that's like Germany Regret Meter or something like that. And here it is, almost $3 billion as the potential loss on its sold BTC. They sold at 58,700. We're at 117,000 now. They sold 50,000 Bitcoins. This is going to be go down as just a massive like mistake and blunder by a nation. In this Bitcoin adoption stage of history. Crazy.
You know what I think happened? They sold at 58K. They saw the 58K gang memes and they thought this is just a stable level. We're just going to get out here. We can always get back in at 58K.
That's right. Eventually, 58K gang is wrong. They were right. They were right for a very long time.
Yeah.
And there's a chance. Saying there's a chance that they could be right again.
Brady,
don't trade it.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you throw that corporate treasury thing on slide real quick? Yeah. So I've been noodling with a bit of research, and Ben Workman actually gave me some awesome feedback on it. But essentially, like, I just, like, for shits and giggles, went on to Gemini and was like, hey, like, what are the top 10 companies that pay dividends? One of those companies on this list, Microsoft, another one, Apple. And then I just, working with Gemini on some research, was like, okay, let's go back and like calculate how much Microsoft and Apple were paying in dividends on what day and what was the price of Bitcoin. I went data as far back as 5 years, but just something very eye-opening to keep in mind. If Microsoft had just in the last 4 quarters taken the entire dividend payment that they paid and just bought Bitcoin with that dividend payment, they would have over 315,000 Bitcoin on top of this cash treasury. So they're not spending cash treasury. They're just no longer paying dividends. That's roughly 60% of MicroStrategy's current stack. And the really, really awesome one was because I have the data starting from Q1 of 21. If they had been buying Bitcoin since Q1 of 2021, just with the dividends they paid out, they would have 2.3 million Bitcoin.
Dang.
So like,
Wow.
yeah. And this is just the dividend. I've been playing with the numbers of like, okay, well, what if they just allocated 5% of the dividend payment, all of this? Ben asked me to do a little bit more digging on, well, what about the stock buybacks they did also during those time periods? So I'll be coming out with a piece on that.
Did you count for Bitcoin price?
Bitcoin price
going up?
on the day of these transactions. So like, for example, on Q1 2024, the price of Bitcoin was $71,000. So that was the day on March 14th, 2024. That was the day Microsoft made the dividend payment, and that was the price of Bitcoin. But then in the Q3 24 dividend payment came out September 12th,
Sure.
and the price of Bitcoin is 58K. So like all these calculations.
I was wondering if they might move the price, though. I think,
which is so valid and fair.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Saylor is amazing at this. Again, just another example of like execution excellence. They are able to buy billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin without moving the price because they make tens of thousands of small buys. And so they have that all set up. So there's ways to do it. Bitcoin's liquid enough that you could, take the time to make tons of small purchases and not move the price too much anyway. But it still creates that stare because that Bitcoin's off the market. So if some, even though it may not be moving the price right away, which, there's a lot of paper Bitcoin accusations that come out of that, right? How can they be making these $1 billion purchases and it's not moving the price? It is possible without paper Bitcoin being part of that equation.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at, here's a tweet from Trump. He is pressuring Jerome Powell super hard at this point. And he's really, put out several of these tweets now, saying the country is now back. Nvidia's up 47% since Trump tariffs. Crypto is through the roof. NASDAQ all-time high. So puts out, these kind of several like points of the economy's doing well. And then USA should be at the top of the list. No inflation. The Fed should rapidly lower the rate to reflect this strength. I love the no inflation. I mean, seriously, can you just say that? And like, is it true?
Yeah.
You can just do things.
Make it so.
You can just say things.
You can just do things. You can just stop inflation.
No inflation. Zero inflation. But that being said, there are some strong like signs of a relatively strong economy right now. Powell does not like Trump pushing him like this. That's pretty clear based on body language. What do you, John? Do you have any inkling at all? I know you read like all the macro analysts, the good ones anyway. What's the read on the likelihood that Powell will move interest rates one way or the other in this next meeting?
In the next meeting, I would just go defer to what the market says, which is percentage likelihood of a cut at the next meeting, which is on July 30th. So a few weeks away, is a 93% chance that they keep rates where they are.
Yep. No change.
No change. Rate range of 4.25% to 4.5% on that front end Fed funds rate. So that's at least how the market's looking at it now.
So what about the medium term?
Yeah, longer term.
What's Roman thinking? Has Lynn weighed in on this?
Yeah, I think if you just look at what the market's pricing in, they are pricing in a likely 25 basis point cut in September.
Okay.
There is no meeting in August because central bankers all have to go to Europe for vacation. And then in October, it's like mixed, like maybe another cut. If things go the way they're going now, I could see them kind of slow play the cuts. Like maybe they do a cut here, maybe they do a cut there. But I'm also a big believer in them, whether they cut 50 basis points over the next 6 months or 75 basis points or only 25 basis points, not really a huge difference maker. This is obviously Lynn's thesis of fiscal dominance. Nothing stops this train. It's just, in different pockets of stocks could react to that. I'm not saying there's no market reaction. There's obviously people who will trade that, and different companies will price it in based on their business and whatever. But I think for the market as a whole, it's just not as big of a deal. What I think is the most interesting takeaway from that Trump tweet is, let's take a step back to the beginning of Trump's presidency. A lot of people were pointing to how he was a cheerleader for the stock market in his first presidency. You guys remember the tweets that he sent out, Trump 1.0, look at the market, your 401ks are at all-time highs, this is all great. A lot of people just assumed that would carry over to Trump 2.0. We got tariffs as soon as he got in the door. And you remember the comments from him and Bessent were, it's Main Street's time, Wall Street's had its turn. Don't look at the market. You just can't look at the market. That was Trump saying that. And people said, oh my God, he's saying the exact opposite of what he said in his first term. So anyone who forecasted that probably looked very smart. Now it looks like the correct read on the situation was there's going to be a little blip on the radar where Trump is going to go towards tariffs and not cheerleading the stock market, but it's going to last for like 3 months. And then we go back to the same type of rhetoric as Trump 1.0. And I think the tweet that Brady showed is like, he's literally calling out the percentage that NVIDIA has increased. as if he's like, doing a research service and saying, hey, I told you to buy NVIDIA, and it went up 47%. So my takeaway here is that we passed the period of Trump being willing to take the market hit for whatever he could get in tariffs. And to be fair, I think there are some wins on the tariff front. It's not like he got nothing. But I think we're now back to more what we saw in Trump 1.0, where he says, look at the market, it's up. This is great for America.
Spend.
and that comes alongside the narrative of kind of the shift from like controlling the debt to growing out of the debt to GDP. I think it's all kind of part of the same pivot. And I know that during the tariff stuff, there were a lot of theories that this was a part of a master plan to tank the markets for a short period of time and drive people into bonds, lower those yields, term out the debt in longer terms. I don't know if that was really the master plan or not. John, maybe you've got some takes on that. But I know that it's not now. And if it were the master plan, it certainly did not work. And it's going to be a growth-oriented environment going forward. So I think like that will be the narrative. Asset prices are up. Just everything's running hot.
Yep. All right, couple other charts that we can look at, and let's talk about inflation. This is the cost to buy a home in 1985 versus 2022. So 85 was boomers were in their 20s and 30s and starting to buy homes. 23,620 was the median household income, and then the median household price was 83,200. So what, 3 times, a little more than 3 times more than your annual income. Now for millennials, this is in 2022, average median income is household income $74,580, and the average house is now $468,000. So yeah,
Awesome.
this is just a great illustration of how fiat money has this sort of Cantillon effect, right? So in this case, you're closest to the end of, or to the beginning of the fiat system, right? In Cantillon, it's like you're closest to the printer. You get money at like a 0% interest rate, and then you get to lend it out, and you're basically just making free money. That's the Cantillon effect. This is sort of like a time-based one where the boomers, were closest to that 1971 break, when we effectively adopted a fiat system, and have really been able to benefit from that. Now it's worn off, and millennials and younger generations are facing the down, the very much the downsides, the catastrophic effects of fiat money. So this is just an example of it, but I'm like at the very old millennial. So you guys, I know that Jason and Q definitely are younger than me. John's a little younger than me too. So you guys are feeling this even more. I was able to actually get a home like 15 years ago. And so I've, benefited from all this inflation since then. And I've got a lot of equity in my home. So like I sort of experienced what boomers experience. Are you guys, have you guys bought homes or thought about it? And what's it look like out there?
We're renting.
Yeah.
Rent gang.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, I live in the literal worst market in the world to try to buy a home in Southern California. So
Yeah.
like, I look at this median home price. I'm like, dude, show me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tomorrow go buy that house.
Gladly take that.
Yeah. This is also something really interesting. I had a client call this week who brought this up to me, and I loved it. We like on the phone, like looked at these numbers, and then I just actually pulled it up because you have the median home price from 85, but he pointed out that if you had taken the median home price in 71 and bought that amount of gold instead of a house, your actual return would be way higher than the return on just the home. Yeah. And so like, even though everyone's saying like, oh my God, like if you just bought real estate back then, like you'd be doing great. Heck, if you bought gold back then, you'd be doing even better. So it really is just, it shows you how distorted our money really is, more so than like the value of these assets are going higher and higher. It's really just driven by the fact that we've destroyed the dollar, especially since 1971.
I am like I'm like right in the middle, millennial Brady. And or maybe not in the middle, but like no doubt millennial, not really on the edge. I would say got lucky, a little bit lucky, but not entirely lucky. Like we do own our place. The price tag was high, but we got a mortgage at the time when rates were much lower than they are today. So I would consider myself at least partially lucky. I have plenty of friends though that haven't bought a place yet, and they're looking at whatever 6-7% mortgage, plus the prices are up. Like I think even on the nationwide level, median home prices are up like 50% versus pre-COVID, and that's median. As you guys just pointed out, median does not always describe what's going on by you. If you are in the New York area, Southern California area, some hot metro area, the home prices probably went up by more than 50%.
Oh yeah.
And that's the
price.
Like entry level is like $1 million. That's like,
again, show me that house, Brady, please.
Yeah. But I mean, like seriously, like, you might get a 1-bedroom studio or something, but that's like sort of the table stakes. You got to come with $1 million. It's gonna be more like 2 or 3.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where, people myopically, and Bitcoiners have been pointing this out for years and years, but you can myopically look at inflation, and Saylor's done a great job articulating this, but you can basically craft the bucket, the basket, whatever, so that it's of consumable things that are least likely to show the real inflation. And then when you show home prices and compare it to median income, that's why, some kid who just graduated and is in his early 20s is not going to be like, yeah, no inflation, everything's super affordable. It's like, are you kidding me? My parents bought a house when they were 24, and I can't see myself affording a house until I'm 44. Obviously, inflation is a problem there.
Okay. Elon Musk talked about Bitcoin, and when that happens, everyone
we get
listens.
118K.
Yeah, exactly. So someone asked Elon, will America Party embrace Bitcoin? And Elon responds, fiat is hopeless, so yes. It's kind of hard to figure out this guy on Bitcoin. He was kind of big into it 5 years ago or so. Tesla started accepting Bitcoin. They ran their own node. They ran a Lightning node for accepting Bitcoin. They even submit, like the Tesla engineering team submitted a couple of patches to the BTC Pay server, open source software. So that was interesting. And he seemed to be very curious about it. Then he started asking these very noob questions, very basic questions about Bitcoin, and like, basic criticisms that have been long, addressed at that point. So guys, what does this mean? Is Elon re-engaging in Bitcoin? Does he actually understand it at this point in comparison to fiat money? This is a pretty interesting tweet.
I will just say before you guys give your takes, if you search Elon Musk fiat, his profile on Twitter, that's obviously the most recent one where he says fiat is hopeless. But then the one before that is him in December of 2020. He wrote Bitcoin is almost as BS as fiat money.
Yeah, there you go.
So when Brady says he's a little hard to figure out when it comes to Bitcoin, that's one of the things. He had the famous quote with Preston Pish in a Spaces where he was like, if you guys start giving me annoying Bitcoin arguments, I'm going to leave, or, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And Tesla sold some of their Bitcoin. So it is a little hard to figure him out. But the big headline of the week is that he's apparently launching this America party. We'll see how far he gets with that. And he answered the question of, will you embrace Bitcoin with fiat is hopeless? So it's headline worthy, but I'm not sure exactly what to make of it yet.
I want to just really emphasize this point because I see it circulating so much, but like they still hold, I think it's like 11,000 Bitcoin. So like Tesla did not fully liquidate their position. A lot of Bitcoiners get confused about that. That said, this is my take. Why are Bitcoiners simping over Elon Musk? Like that's the part that I'm just like rolling my eyes about over this thing. Like, sure, he might say fiat is hopeless and yeah, we'll embrace Bitcoin, but in that same breath, you really think the Doge father is not going to also turn around and be like, well, I embrace Bitcoin, I'm definitely embracing Doge as well.
Yeah.
I think it's irrelevant in my opinion. Like Bitcoin's going to continue to do what it does, whether or not Elon embraces it, whether this new political party embraces it, whether the Republicans embrace it, or if the next administration somehow reverses everything Trump does, if the Dems come in and reverse everything Trump does. I think all of the political simping I find a little ridiculous from Bitcoiners who are very at the ethos. Bitcoin is a separation of state and money. And then we turn around and are like excited every time a politician says the word Bitcoin. It's like, okay, you have my vote. It's like, I thought the point was to actually get money out of the hands of these politicians, not give them more power and control over it.
Yeah, he's an unpredictable guy. That's pretty much where I'll leave it. I can't index on how he's going to feel in the future about Bitcoin versus how he's felt today or in the past. It's funny. I don't really think of Elon as a politician. I think of him, his run was so short. Uh, I think of him as a highly influential voice, and I think a lot of other people view him that way. I remember during the 2021 cycle, he tweeted something. I can't remember what it is. I'm not going to search for it on the spot. But Bitcoin dropped pretty dramatically after he said it. So I think people just place a lot of weight in like, how are his words going to move the price for traders in the short term? That's where I think most of this comes from. I don't think any high conviction Bitcoiner is looking to Elon Musk as the North Star. So
Yeah,
I think it's newsworthy because he's a billionaire. He's Elon.
yeah,
I do think it's noteworthy when like that French guy, Philip Lafont, billionaire, goes on Bloomberg to talk about, goes on CNBC to talk about Bitcoin. I think it's newsworthy. I'm not going to like fawn over them for it, but it's worth highlighting.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, these Bitcoin touches everything. It's going to be the base layer of this, our future economy. And that's what it's becoming right now, which touches everything, including corporations, including governments, including politics. And I agree. We should not be simping or fawning over, politicians. However, there's a place for organizations like BPI, the Bitcoin Policy Institute, to educate policymakers and lobbyists about Bitcoin. And I think that's important. Like, I think we need to remember that it takes all kinds. And I get it. The kind of crypto anarchist, values that Bitcoin is really born with. That's got to change and expand over time beyond those kind of very laser focused, values and principles. Anyway,
Having powerful people on your side is better than having them working against you and making your life harder. Full stop.
yeah. But I totally take Q's point about not, don't trust, verify. I think still needs to be a core value of Bitcoiners. There was definitely some fawning over Trump and the election of Trump, and that's a good example. Saylor's a good example. He's just a guy. He's a good Bitcoin educator, but he is just a guy, and Bitcoin's bigger than all of these people. So
the best example I like to pull on Jimmy Song and I got into a pretty heated back and forth on this, but Ted Cruz, he just will disappear, and then all of a sudden election cycle comes around and he's dropping Bitcoin here or there. He has never co-signed a single one of Lummis's bills. He has never pushed for it on a national stage. Yes, we've seen Texas do things, but not because Ted Cruz is pushing them. Yeah. So Ted Cruz is the perfect case study of a politician who will say it to get your vote and then disappear when the moment is there for him to actually do the work.
100%.
Are you saying politicians say things
and then don't do them?
What a crazy idea.
Oh man.
God forbid they do their job.
The way I ultimately think about this is good rhetoric is good rhetoric. And when it comes from powerful voices, that's probably a net good thing, but it shouldn't be the reason you're getting into Bitcoin. I've had people come to me since election night, especially maybe a little bit before leading up to that, maybe last summer, the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. Trump says this and that about Bitcoin, so I'm thinking of getting in. There should be more substance to it than that, right? But if that's the thing that kind of starts your learning process, that's good. I think that's the power in large influential voices talking about this. And it was always going to happen if Bitcoin were going to win, right? That was an inevitable outcome.
Yep.
So give it some credit. Don't give it too much weight.
All right, let's finish with this one, guys. 2011. So coins that were dormant for 14 years. It was a wallet with 80,000 Bitcoin in it, which is about $8.7 billion. Some of these coins moves. This tweet was made, I think, before the full move was done. So it says 40,000 Bitcoin removed. You guys were telling me before the show started that we had all 80,000 coins move eventually.
Brady, why are you doxing me, man? This is not cool.
Just act natural, Jason.
Yeah, act natural.
There's the sirens again.
But seriously, this may one of the richest people on the planet when you have close to $9 billion.
The version of this story I had read was that all 80,000 coins had been moved in tranches of 10,000 at a time.
Okay.
To updated addresses. So
could have just wanted to move to upgraded addresses.
Yeah,
that's
good practice.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like so far. Because I think if they moved again from that first move, there would have been more commotion about it, and I haven't seen anything. So I think it is in that new address. I think most likely it's what Brady's saying, just into a better form of custody, more accessible, more secure, whatever. Obviously, people speculate: is this person, did they want to aggressively go sell? That seems like it's a no, at least for now. Maybe they are positioning to sell some of it. Maybe they're like, hey, Bitcoin's, on this parabolic trajectory. And it doesn't mean that 100K was their mark. It could mean 200K was their mark, but maybe they think 200K is going to get hit this year. And they're like, look, I want to position this so that I can trim some at 200K. The person will be almost $20 billion. This will be almost worth $20 billion at 200K. So
clearly they're moving
their positioning.
Invest heavily into Bitcoin treasury companies with all 80,000.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Appreciate you all coming to watch every Friday and hang out with us. Shout out to the chat. I didn't mix it up in the chat as much today, but I was reading everything. So appreciate you all.
Brady,
And,
can we
yeah.
give Lynn one quick shout out? She wrote an
course.
article, Bitcoin Treasury Companies and Store of Value versus Medium of Exchange Debate. That's a public article. Check it out. And Forbes wrote an article that was literally in the title, said nothing stops this train.
That's right.
2 big wins for Lynn there.
She's such a legend. They also raised $100 million for Ego Death Capital.
Oh, yeah.
Which is their investment firm. Largest ever raise for Bitcoin only purposes, investment purposes, which is pretty awesome. So shout out to Lynn, also on the board at Swan. She does so many things. She's also working on a sci-fi novel. You know, might as well, I guess. John, you guys want to give us a quick description or shill for Swan Private? Maybe an anecdotal, like a client story or something would be good too.
For sure, for sure. So I always describe Swan Private. The fastest way to say it is like, think a private banker or a wealth advisor, but for everything related to Bitcoin. So first and foremost, that means a human you can go to, a specific human you can go to. We do have a support team and they're all fantastic. But if you're part of Swan Private, you get a specific person that you can go to. Could be simple questions about your account. You just want to know how to do something. Or it could be something much more strategic, like advice and guidance on retirement accounts, on different forms of custody, on multi-sig collaborative custody, on Bitcoin-backed loans, on estate planning. Estate planning is absolutely massive, especially as you see the price go up. People start caring more and more about their custody, about their estate planning. So that's ultimately what Swan Private is meant to be. That's kind of the service component on top of using our platform, what you can actually do with our platform. I would say, to give a client success story, this one comes to mind. I've done onboarding calls for our offering. It's called Swan Vault. This is multi-sig collaborative custody, 2 of 3 multi-sig. You as the client have 2 keys. Swan holds 1 key on your behalf. I've done onboarding calls where a whole family joins, husband, wife, and kids, because the spouse and the kids may not necessarily grok every single word that's being discussed, but if they just have some exposure to it, they're like, okay, we as a family have this Bitcoin. It's kind of being stored in this type of setup. That's been a really cool experience to kind of help out an entire family on a call together.
All right, and you guys want to add anything to it? All right, cool. Yeah, go ahead, Q.
I was just gonna kind of like hammer home the point John said of like, it's not just about like the individual client, it's about helping their family to understand and like being there as a resource for them beyond just one individual buying the Bitcoin.
Yeah. And I would just add that some of the feedback I get from my client base is just that, they have worked with many companies in this space for a number of years, and they've never had kind of like a hands-on relationship with any one person within those companies. In fact, most of them have had very poor experiences when it comes to support or anything else contacting those companies. So to have somebody that you're, the same person that you're working with on all things, whether it's your retirement, your custody, things like tax loss harvesting, to have that person's direct contact info and the ability to shoot them a text on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon when you need something, that is really the value of Swan Private. And I've got more good stories than could come to mind immediately that have come out of that. But it's really rewarding to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everyone at Swan Private does great work, and I hear all kinds of awesome stories coming from clients who meet us at events or webinars, etc. How much they value Swan Private. So check it out at swan.com/private and get in touch with one of these guys, and we'll get to working on your Bitcoin investments and your future. Also, thank you to Mara for securing the Bitcoin network and for supporting this show. And also big shout out for those 50,000 Bitcoins on your treasury. Congratulations on that. Smart move. That's 10 times more than Coinbase has in about a quarter of the time to stack it. So there it is. All right, guys, we'll see you next Friday. Take care, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Later.
Adios.